with a clear mind, our spiritual powers can reach everywhere in a direction. I'll come to that later. We can clearly reflect all objects and grasp our past life. So this is about clarity of the mind, and it's only when the mind is clear you get spiritual powers, and therefore you can get the remembrance of our past life. With a pure nature, we make clear directions, or calling the power samadhi. Having no obstruction is called having spiritual powers. So Moggallana, it's amongst all the 10 foremost disciples. Moggallana is known as, general term called spiritual powers. The power is actually specifically more on psychic powers and be able to see the past life even of others. So our minds can be focused when we do things. We'll be able to be very clear. This kind of power is free obstruction. It's called spiritual power. And he was obviously born in the Brahmin. In fact, most of them, maybe with the exception of the 10 foremost disciples, I think the only one that I'm aware that not born of the noble family is Upala. Upala is one of the 10 foremost disciples, and he was from a lower caste, but he is a holder of the Vinaya rules. So both Moggallana and Sariputta were good friends, and this relation of Moggallana and Sariputta have been going on for innumerable past life. It was during that time, and both Sariputta and Moggallana, if I remember correctly, they were actually in Nalanda, and Nalanda is near Rajgir, and the Bhakti speak is also in Rajgir. So when he heard one of the Buddha disciples, and Bhiksu Aswarichi, and heard him say, all things arise with causes and conditions. All things cease with causes and conditions. And the Buddha, the great Saramana is a spiritual practitioner, always teaches this. So these words awaken Sariputta, and they have a pact with Sariputta and Moggallana to tell each other and find a greater teacher. And one story has it that they had learned enough from the teacher they had at that time. They needed to learn more. But that story was that the teacher that they had passed on. So they were looking for a new teacher, but whatever it is, they were actually looking for a teacher. So that's where these words awakened them, and he was happy to rush to find Moggallana to let him know. And both of them then joined the Sangha. And the Buddha knew when they first met up with them that they will be among the leaders of the pack. Both of them actually predeceased the Buddha, both Sariputta and Moggallana. So, but because Moggallana also has his own karmic afflictions in the past, and because of this, the other religious practitioners could not argue against him, and so they created a lot of hatred and jealousy. But understand this hatred and jealousy actually went back from the past life. So there are karmic retribution that cannot be avoided, even one with a great spiritual power, like Moggallana, and he actually was killed by this group of religious practitioners. But when I first read this story before this particular chapter, there was people who actually killed Moggallana must be suffering severe karmic retribution, because Moggallana was already an enlightened being at that time, and obviously then walking the Bodhisattva path. Even that's why we even got to forget about hurting in that way. But even sometimes the speech where we speak, especially someone whom we do not even know, like the person could be very humble, and the words that we say may be very hurting. So the Buddha explained the force of karma has great Mount Meru. Whatever causes and conditions you create, you must eventually face those consequences. So all the karma Moggallana created have finally been exhausted in this particular lifetime, and then you can move on. So Venerable Moggallana dedicated his body and his life to the Buddha until the very end. And as I said, both Moggallana and Sariputta predeceased the Buddha. And so then who was left then? It was actually Mahakasyapa became the foremost disciple, as we shared yesterday. So after the Buddha entered parinirvana, Mahakasyapa took the lead. And obviously, that's why you visit a lot of the Mahayana temples, whether in China or in Malaysia. You find that Sakyamuni Buddha is flanked by two acolytes. On the left is Mahakasyapa, and you can see from the face of the image, it's old and it's a wrinkled face. That's Mahakasyapa. And then on Sakyamuni's right, you see a young man, and that's Ananda. So contemplation. Now, this contemplation, is inspired from the Heart Sutra. So, and this is about the clarity of the mind. So have the courage to let go of the self in you. I should put the word colon self, okay? This is the self. And so you need to first of all understand what the self means if you want to understand that line. And garner the strength in the spiritual power to journey in the path selflessly. Because if you understand the self, then you need to understand what it means selfless, the journey on this path selflessly. And this one, you understand that, and that's why you can garner the strength in the spiritual power. Without the self, there is nothing to attain. Because you don't have no self, right? So what is there to attain? If there's nothing to attain, then the mind is free from obstacles, isn't it? Because we are attached to the self, that's why our mind is not free from obstacles. So when the mind is free from obstacles, then one overcomes fear and progress to the highest realization. And try to contemplate on this. On relationship, a short one. Clarity in relationship, and that we need to understand our relation that we have so that we are clear. But when one has perfected oneself in seeing, one would have perfected the inner peace and the noble mind. Perfected oneself in seeing, this is the seeing of what the truth should be. And this can only come about when you have inner peace. If one doesn't have the inner peace, one will be afflicted by one's own desire emotion. And that's why the seeing get muddled. So that's why to perfect oneself in seeing, must have perfected inner peace. And then only then can the noble mind arise. The spiritual power of vision is clear for understanding of such relationship. The vision is no longer obscured by the impurities of the mind. Okay, Kanan, thank you.
Yeah, Kanan so much, BrotherChin, for the